Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Maricopa County Board of Adjustment for Thursday, February 13th, 2025. Rosalie, would you please do the roll call?
Chairman Loper,
Present.
Vice Chairperson,
Present.
Member Ward,
Present.
Member Cardin,
Present.
Member Clapp.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Move on to the announcements. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with the open meeting law of ARS 38-431. Number 2, agendas are available within 24 hours of each meeting in the Maricopa County Planning and Development Office and are also available on the Planning and Development website 1 week prior to the hearing at www.maricopa.gov/planning. C, with respect to the hearing process, cases will be considered in the order they appear on the agenda unless otherwise agreed to by the board. For each case, the applicant will be given a set amount of time to present their testimony. Any witness wishing to give testimony in a particular case shall notify the board of such interest. This shall be done by filling out a speaker's request card if you're here in person. That's one of these. I already have a number of them, but if you wish to speak, please come down and grab one of these, fill it out prior to that item coming up on the agenda. Or if online, registering a desire to comment is noted on the published agenda. Also, at the appropriate time for each case, the chair will ask those attending in person and online who wish to speak to a case to raise their hand by clicking on the icon on the webinar screen. Staff will provide the chair with the names of persons who have registered and noted a desire to comment and those registered participants who have raised their hand. The chairman will call on each named participant one at a time. Such testimony shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. However, the actual amount of time allowed for testimony shall be at the discretion of the board chair. The chair will conduct the hybrid in-person and virtual public hearing according to the bylaws and according to the rules established by the chair regarding public comment. Votes will be done by roll call vote only. And finally, the chair will verbally identify the specific members responsible for all motions and seconds. And our next item is review and approval of the minutes from our last meeting, January 16, 2025. Do any board members have any comments or questions? Seeing none, those are approved. And we'll move on to the agenda to the withdrawn portion of it. Darren?
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is BA 240029 in District 4. It was variances requested for minimum separation distances for a proposed marijuana establishment on a 3.5 acre site at the southeast corner of Dysart and Coulter in the West Glendale Litchfield Park area. The applicant's withdrawn this case. There's no action necessary.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, any specific reason you can give for the being withdrawn? Just curious.
The marijuana establishments are not permitted in CS planned shopping center zoning. They require C2, C3 and industrial zoning districts. Their request to rezone the site from C3 from CS to C2 was denied by the board.
Oh, that would mean they couldn't do it. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the regular agenda. First item is BA 240035, the Boynton Residence Pergola in District 3. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. Agenda item number 2, case BA 240035, is for the Boynton residence. The applicant, on behalf of the property owner, is requesting a variance in the R18 RUPD zoning district for the property located in the Arroyo Norte Units 5, 6, and 7 subdivision in the New River area. The property is comprised of approximately 11,832 square feet and is an unorthodox shape with a concave frontage to the rear that makes the lot narrow, which is similar to various lots within the subdivision. The variance request is for a proposed 4-foot side yard setback for the eastern property line, where 7 feet is a minimum permitted in the R18 RUPD zoning district. The property is currently developed with a single-family residence. The applicant is proposing improvements to the rear yard by attaching a 450 square foot pergola to serve as a shade structure to the proposed barbecue area. The attached pergola is considered part of the primary structure and is required to meet the 7-foot minimum. The site's lot shaped is not a peculiar condition for the zoning district. The surrounding properties in the neighborhood have been developed under the zoning district development standards. The pergola may be developed in multiple ways without a need for a variance. If it is detached to the residence, it would be considered a detached accessory structure, which would be permitted to encroach into the required side yard at a minimum 3-foot side yard setback. Or if the applicant reduces the size of the proposed attached pergola by a couple of square feet, it could meet the 7-foot setback requirement and a variance would not be needed. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Great overview. Are there any questions of staff at this time by any of the board members? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. Go ahead and open the public hearing. The applicant, Nathan Bangert, I understand that you are available if wish to speak. Do you want to add anything? Is he online? He's online. Nathan, did you wish to speak?
Chairman, I do have Nathan unmuted. We're not able to hear him, but it does show that he's unmuted. I don't know if he has maybe his cell phone also unmute. But Nathan should be able to speak.
We'll give him a moment here.
Mr. Chairman,
I-
if he's unable to unmute on his system, he can call my cell phone. I'll give him the number.
Okay.
Sir, if you want to call in, we'll put you on speaker. You can call 602-723-2241.
You realize just about 1 billion people just wrote your number down.
There's like two.
Chairman, he just messaged me that he is having technical issues, but he had nothing to add.
Okay, okay.
You want he said just go ahead and proceed.
All right, thank you very much. If there's anything critical or if it looks like it's going a certain way, we may defer and continue this. But I do have just something to follow up. Paula, it is Paula, correct? You'd mentioned, and a question of mine was, if they detach this, this wouldn't be an issue. And that separation between the primary and the accessory, that can be that could be an air gap. What is there a minimum dimension for that?
Mr. Chairman, board members, if it is structurally detached, which can be very minimal and not under the same eave or roof overhang, then it meets that requirement.
Are you aware? It looks like they are attaching it to the structure from the existing patio. They're using those supports as part of it and then extending that roof line out. That's my take on it. Does that seem accurate?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, Vice Chairperson.
Paula, was there any opposition from any of the neighbors?
No opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that said, are there any other discussion items from the board? If not, I would entertain a motion. This is in District 3. My only comment, and I know the historically kind of the stance we've taken on these, it seems like there's 2 remedies possible to negate the need for a variance: reduce the size or detach it. There may be added expense with detaching it from a structural standpoint. And at the same time, just by detaching it, it has the same overall impact on the neighborhood. So I personally don't really have an issue with it. Those are my comments, but I'll defer to the board for discussion and our motion.
Chairman Loper, I move that we approve case BA 240035, subject to the language in the staff report.
We have a motion for approval from Vice Chairperson. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Member Clapp. Rosalie?
Member Cardin,
Yes.
Member Clapp,
Yes.
Member Ward,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson,
Yes.
Chairman Loper.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion for an approval by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Congratulations to the applicant. Next item on the agenda is BA 240036, a billboard at 10240 West Bell Road in District 4.
Thank you, Chairman Loper,
Go ahead,
members of the
Nick.
board. Case BA 240036, a request for a variance to permit a new static billboard with a separation distance of 370 feet from the nearest existing billboard. In the C2 zoning district, a minimum separation distance of 1,000 feet is required when the proposed billboard is located within 3 miles of a municipality. Next slide, please. So the subject site is a commercial property at the northeast corner of 105th Avenue and Bell Road. The commercial building on site was developed in the 1970s. In 2009, a static billboard measuring a height of 30 feet and a sign face area of 300 square feet was developed near the south lot line. At the time, there were no other billboards nearby. Next slide, please. So in 2016, a plan of development was approved for another static billboard at the northwest corner of Boswell Boulevard and Bell, just 450 feet to the east. At the time, the MCZO required that a billboard in the C2 zoning district maintain a 1,000-foot separation distance from an existing billboard on the same street if either sign was within 3 miles of a city or town. This other billboard is addressed off Boswell rather than Bell, so the separation distance from the 2009 billboard was not then an issue. However, when the regulations governing billboards in Maricopa County were overhauled in 2021, the distancing requirements were changed to a minimum of 1,000-foot radial separation, regardless of street orientation. This amendment rendered the 2009 and 2016 billboards both legally non-conforming. With the 2009 billboard having been removed last year, the 2016 billboard is now conforming to the MCZO. However, the proposal for a replacement billboard on the subject site would place it even closer to the 2016 billboard than the 2009 billboard had been, with the separation distance now reduced to about 370 feet. Unless variance is granted, the replacement billboard will not be allowed. Next slide, please. So the proposed billboard would meet height and sign face area requirements. It would also be over 100 feet from the nearest residential zoning. The only standard requiring variance would be the minimum separation distance from another billboard. However, there's no apparent peculiar condition facing the property that, when presented with the requirements of the MCZO, creates a physical hardship preventing reasonable development. In fact, the property was developed with a commercial use, which is the general intent of the C2 zoning district in the 1970s. For this reason, obtaining a variance for the benefit of a billboard on the subject site would fail to preserve the general intent and purpose of the MCZO. However, if the board finds that the applicant has satisfied the statutory test and has stated its findings on the record, the grant of this variance will memorialize the following. Item A, variance approval establishes a minimum separation distance of 350 feet from an existing billboard to the east for a proposed billboard on APN 230-04-372B. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nick. Great overview of the project. Are there any questions of staff at this time? Vice Chair Person.
Thank you, Nick. Do you know why the proposed billboard isn't being proposed in the location of the one that was recently removed?
I believe from what the applicant had told me, it's on the same property as the one that was recently removed. The reason it's being shifted at least slightly to the north is to adhere to new safety standards regarding overhead power lines. Why it's being shifted closer to the east, I am not sure.
Any other questions of staff? All right, thank you again. Go ahead and open the public hearing. The applicant, Mr. Allison.
Mr. Chair and members, for the record, Bill Allison with Umora Spa, 2525 East Arizona Biltmore Circle. I'm here on behalf of both the property owner Country Club Ventures and the billboard company Lamar Advertising. I've got a very quick presentation to give you, and I think it'll answer a couple of the questions that have been raised. Some of this will be a little bit redundant, but once that's up, I'll be ready to go, and this should be quick. Okay. So the property, as you are aware, is west of the northwest corner of Bell and Boswell. The green arrow is pointing at the location the sign was until last summer. This sign was built in 2009, completely in conformance with regulations. It stood by itself until 2017 when another billboard was approved at the hard corner of Boswell and Bell. It was ostensibly oriented to Boswell. it's arguable that it was. But regardless, that suddenly my client's board and property had a neighbor. There is an issue with the property, and the reason that we were not able to rebuild the board where it was or just use the steel that was already there, and that is the power lines that are on site, which neither the property owner nor the billboard company have any control over. The horizontal distance between those power lines and the prior billboard is 12 horizontal feet. And you can see that in this slide, and then the power lines read even better in this slide. In the last 16 years since the construction of the billboard, the industry safety standards have been improved. Lamar, which is currently the proposed billboard lessee on this property, has a standard that you need to maintain 17 horizontal feet and 30 vertical feet from power lines. My assistant or my colleague Hannah Bleem and I went through the Lamar safety standards. It's shocking. That's a terrible word. It's alarming how many people have been electrocuted because of the proximity of power lines to billboards, and that's what they're trying to get at. As I said, the horizontal distance for Lamar is 17 feet. The prior billboard company on this property, which is another client of mine, was out front, and their standard is 20 feet. There was no way to leave this billboard in its old location safely. So the proposal is to move the sign to the north and to the east to get it 20 feet away from the power lines and to avoid other impacts on site, and they are these. You can see with the red circle where the prior billboard was. There's no way to move that to the north without getting right in the middle of parking spaces and a maneuvering area. If you tried to move it to the west, which would be further away from the billboard at the corner, you're getting into drainage infrastructure that is on site. And frankly, both of those locations would also require variance relief. The place that made the most sense to move it in a safe manner without impacting other elements on the property is the selected location. So the proposal is to reduce the separation to 370 feet where 1,000 is required. We do believe there are peculiar conditions that are on site. Primarily, we are driven by those power lines. But for those power lines, there would have been a change in company that's operating the billboard, but still would have remained in place. Neither the prior billboard company nor the current billboard company, however, can safely do that. They are not interested in having someone on either of their companies harmed by those power lines. And again, conditions on site dictate where this sign would go. We don't believe, in fact, that this has any negative impact on the ordinance intent. This billboard existed for 16 years, a few of those by itself. So there were two signs within 1,000 feet of each other for 7 years before this billboard was taken down at staff's direction. They would not entertain any discussion about a new sign until the old sign was gone. And the sign's been missing for less than 12 months. This is not adding something that has not been part of the visual landscape to the street. There were suggestions in the staff report that there are other locations further east that would be available. And although we appreciate those suggestions, those don't have anything to do with the property owner, Country Club Ventures. This is the property they own, and it is impacted. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions by any of the board members of the applicant? All right, hang tight, Bill. We may have some more questions.
Okay.
This is a public hearing. You don't have to stay up there, but I'm just saying,
I'll
we may have some more. This is a public hearing. Do we have anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Do we have anyone online? All right, thank you. Then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it over to the board for discussion and or a motion. This is in District 4. That's the district I represent. I'd appreciate someone else making a motion, but I certainly can if no one wishes to. Any discussion? All right, I'll go ahead then and initiate. Oh, I do have a question for you, Bill. Is this new billboard, is it to be a digital? It's a V-shaped, correct?
Mr. Chair and members, absolutely not. This would be the same height and the same size and the same lack of illumination. This will be a static billboard and it cannot be illuminated without variance relief. And
Okay.
we are not requesting that.
That's not part of your request.
It is
Have
not.
you, and I'm going to guess yes, but you've gone through the appropriate property owner association for any kind of comment or review? I don't know if this is Pora or the other one, but
We've heard nothing from anybody.
okay. I don't even know if you have to for commercial, but usually they'll interject themselves into the process either way. So
They are not shy.
they are not at all. Okay. Do you have a question, Member Purcell?
Well,
Mr. Chair?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
since
go
you
right
asked me
ahead.
to. I move that we approve case BA 240036, subject to the language in the staff report.
We have a motion for approval by Vice Chair Person. Do we have a second? We have a second from Member Cardin. Rosalie, when you get an opportunity.
Member Cardin,
Yes.
Member Clapp,
Yes.
Member Ward,
Yes.
Vice Chair Person,
Yes.
Chairman Loper.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion for an approval by a vote of 5-0.
Congratulations and thank you. Move on to the next item agenda item number 4, BA 240037, the Bratton property in District 2. Joe, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. The subject property is located at the northwest corner of Redberry and 82nd Place in the Mesa area. The site is 35,000 square feet and is within the R135 zoning district. Next slide, please. The applicant is seeking a 20-foot front yard setback reduction to the southern lot line adjacent to Redberry, where a 40-foot front yard setback is the minimum required. The subject site is of regular rectangular shape and meets minimum zoning district requirements for lot area and lot width. Staff notes the site is relatively flat and void of any geographical features not typical in the area. There is a small wash along the southern portion of the site. However, staff notes the requested variance will bring the proposed residence closer to the wash. Next slide, please. It is noteworthy that while the applicant provided detailed site and floor plans of the proposed residence, there has not yet been a construction permit submitted for the subject property. The proposed floor plan includes multiple accessory dwelling units. Staff notes that only one ADU is permitted per lot of record. Staff has coordinated with the applicant on this matter, and the applicant has indicated that a modified building plan is being worked on to reduce the ADU count to 1. Next slide, please. Staff has been unable to identify a peculiar condition facing the property. While there is the presence of a small wash on the southern portion of the property, it does not impact the placement of a residence within the lot's principal building envelope. The photo shown on the slide is from the southern portion of the property facing north with the wash in the foreground. Next slide, please. The fact that there is not an active building permit for the proposed residence is noteworthy. First, because the residence and site design could still be altered or modified to meet zoning district requirements. And second, if the variance is granted and the proposed residence does not come to fruition, the reduced setback would remain on the property in perpetuity. Staff cannot identify a peculiar condition on the property that, when presented with the ordinance standard, creates an undue physical hardship not created in the line of title that will prevent reasonable development of the property. If the board finds the applicant has satisfied the statutory test and has stated its findings on the record, the grant of this variance will memorialize 20-foot south setback line for APN 219-21007E. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joe. A great overview of the project. I have a question, but I'll defer to other board members first. Anybody have any questions? Here's my question. So the floor or the site plan that we have in front of us, the applicant's already mentioned that they are likely to modify that to bring the ADU, the number of ADUs in compliance with the county regulation.
Chairman, that is correct. I have emailed with them and had a phone conversation to that effect.
So you don't know if that would maintain the variance request, make it less, or even potentially greater at this point?
Chairman, that is correct. I am unaware what the modified site layout would look like.
Do you know, Joe, are they, and the applicant can speak to this as well, but is it the detached ADU they're removing or the attached, or you probably don't know yet if you haven't seen it?
Chairman, per our phone conversation, it was the attached ADU that they were going to attempt to modify, but the applicant may be able to speak on that in further detail.
Okay, because that's the one that seems to stick out more towards the front. And then a question for you, or if you're not aware, maybe Rachel or Darren, the recent statutory change for ADUs, is this does a county regulation currently comply with that?
Mr. Chairman, yes, the county's allowed ADUs for 14 years. So we're a leader in the ADU allowance.
As is the county in all things. But I know, like, for municipalities, it's conceivably up to 3, 1 attached and 2 detached. So
And so there hasn't been any mandate on that at the county, for county jurisdictions. We're open, we have a long history of regulatory reform, always the least amount of regulation necessary for the public health, safety, welfare. Back to this case, I should point out that the site plan and floor plans are just informational purposes. If a variance gets approved, they're not obligated to build to any site plan. It just establishes a new development standard that applies to this property in perpetuity. So, what's before you is this issue self-created? Can they have reasonable development without the variance?
right. No, great point there. Thank you very much. Any other questions of staff at this time? See none, I'll open the public hearing. And I have 2 speaker request cards, one from the applicant, Sonia Maines, and the other from, I'm going to guess, is the property owner, Sam Bratton. You're both in attendance.
Yes.
Certainly can do a tag team presentation if you'd
Yeah.
like. Go ahead and provide your names for the public record and go forward with your presentation.
Well, thank you, board, for having us here. My name is Sonia Minus. I am the applicant and also the wife of the owner, Sam. So we are building our forever home here. And the reason for the ADUs, just to address those questions, is both of our fathers will be living with us. Unfortunately, they did not plan for their retirement. So it's very important for us to have a place for them to spend the rest of their lives. The adjustment that we're making does not have any effect on the variance. We're just removing the kitchen and putting an entry from the front ADU into the main home. So that one's for my father. He's fine eating breakfast with us, so that one's totally fine. The issues that we are having, and I think any future, I know that we haven't done any permitting at the moment. Our goal is to build this home. We've invested a lot of money in it already, but the goal is to have that variance, because us or any future owners are going to have an issue putting a septic. That's the whole reason for this variance. There is a well right on the side of the north side, the north property, and the septic has to be 100 feet from that well. So you could see that radiant right on the corner. And then there's also that wash goes up towards the backyard. It goes 30 feet in from the south. So it takes up quite a bit of the yard. And from that 30 feet that wash has to be, there's also a 25-foot setback to be able to put a septic. So without the variance, we wouldn't be able to put a septic at all, which we need. So that's the reason for this hearing.
All right, thank you. Did your husband wish to speak as well?
Nailed it. You got it right.
You're a wise man. You're a very wise man. And I didn't notice any change of expression when she said it was her dad that's going to live in the one that's attached and he's joining you for
My
breakfast.
dad's
Yeah.
on the other end of the
Yeah,
property.
There
likes
was
his
no change in expression. Anyway, back to stop the editorializing. All right, any questions of the applicant? All right, may have some coming up. This is a public hearing. Are there any other speakers in the audience who wish to speak on this item? Do we have anyone online? No one online either. Go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it over to the board for discussion and or a motion. This is in District 2. Member Clapp.
The staff report says that if some of the property is modified, particularly kitchens, that there would likely be less need for the size of the septic system. Is that correct?
That is staff's position, correct. I'm not sure if there are other factors on site that would still necessitate the location where it is, but the required size of the tank is dictated by the amount of plumbing fixtures in the residence.
Okay. And the applicant has already stated that they're changing the attached ADU to remove the kitchen. So I'm assuming that ADU, or it's not going to be called an ADU anymore, that piece of the property could potentially be further to the east or further to the north than it is now. So I'm having a little problem with approving this with the concept of that the septic system could potentially be smaller with reduction of a kitchen and changing the attached ADU to probably a smaller size, which in my mind would negate the need for a variance. That's the way I read it. So maybe someone else wants to respond to this, but my feeling is that I don't see the potential need for this based on the changes that are being made in the redesign. So I could go toward continuing this until there is a actual design, or saying that I'm not in favor of this variance.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to the applicant to address that. Without a kitchen, it's just a bedroom in that case.
It's a bedroom and a sitting area. It does not, it's the same size that we would need, just because once you get up to a certain, with the bedrooms, there's like a range of fixtures. So we've already had our septic engineer, we've spoken to them about negating that kitchen, and it still is the same size. We've also had to turn to an alternative system, an alternative leach bed, and also an alternative system pump, because of the amount of space, and also because unfortunately the water table's at 10 feet, so we can't do a smaller system. So the only way to, and it doesn't, there's no way to shift it's already shifted as much as it can to the left, to allow for for the engineer to make room for that wash, because the wash comes in through the east part and it runs all along the front, and then it has to divert back to where it originally exited. So it's at 100 CFS, which is pretty high. So it has to be quite large. So even with negating the kitchen in there, we would still need a 3,000 gallon septic tank.
Could I ask a question?
Go ahead.
What was the size of the kitchen that you're removing?
It's just just a small kitchen, so it just had a sink, a smaller stove, and then just a smaller fridge just for him. It was kind of like a kitchenette, was pretty much how big it was supposed to be.
And when will you have the actual change in design available?
As soon as you say yes, I could get my engineer to follow up with the plans. We have to send it to all of our engineers, and so we're kind of halting. We've spent quite a bit of money already on our architectural plans. So before we proceed any further, we wanted to make sure that it's possible that we could still build this home, because then we'd have to sell the lot. But yeah.
Yeah, one thing I would also add that irrelevant of the ADU, the size of the property is dictating whether or not we can have the septic tank. There's really one location for the septic tank, and that's along that west wall. But due to the nature of the marsh and the well on the north side of the property, we're just very limited. So like Sonia said, we've had to go to an alternative system due to the leaching of the soil. That's the real crux of the issue, is the placement of the septic. And whether we removed a sink or even decreased the size of that space, there's other mitigating factors due to the well, the wash, and the leach bed.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other board members? All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, this is in District 2. Is there a motion for approval, denial, or continuance by any of the board members, particularly for District 2? Member Cardin.
Chairman Loper, I'll just throw out an opinion, recognizing this isn't my district, but just based on the last little bit of the conversation, it feels to me like this is a variance I'd be willing to approve and feel comfortable doing so for the reasons explained by the applicant. And I'd be happy to put that in a form of motion, unless Member Clapp would like to take a different approach.
Thank you.
Fine
Go
with
ahead,
him-
Member
I'm
Clapp.
fine with him making a motion, yes.
Go. She supports you making a motion, Member Cardin.
Then I move that we approve BA 240037. Period. Sorry.
Thank you. I have a motion for approval by Member Cardin. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Vice Chair Person. Rosalie, please take roll call or vote.
Member Cardin,
Yes.
Member Clapp,
Yes.
Member Ward,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson,
Yes.
Chairman Loper.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion for an approval by a vote of 5-0.
Congratulations and best of luck with your home. And bless you for taking care of your dads.
Thank you.
Move on to the last item on the agenda, BA 250004, Arroyo Norte Unit 9, Lot 9. Staff, Joe, or I'm sorry, Nick.
Thank you, Chairman Loper, members of the board. Case BA 250004 is a request for a variance to permit a lot coverage of 31.4%, where 30% is the maximum permitted in the R118 RUPD zoning district. Next slide, please. And next slide after that, please. Thank you. As the owner, William Ryan Homes seeks to develop a single-family residence with an attached patio cover, as well as an ADU and a detached RV garage. The residence alone, without the patio, would contribute to a coverage of 19.2%. The attached patio would add an additional 3%, and the detached RV garage would add 7.5%, and the detached casita 1.7%. Put together, these would add up to a coverage exceeding 30%. According to the applicant, the RV garage, casita, and patio cover were all included as options with the development of the residence. The prospective buyers chose all three options with their purchase of the lot. As such, a variance is necessary, or else the building plan must be revised for permits to be issued. However, next slide, please. Removing any one of these options would bring lot coverage back under 30%. The prospective buyers would be able to choose between any two of the three options, and no variance would be necessary. It is also worth noting that the lot coverage of a lattice patio cover would be calculated at only 50% of its roof cover footprint per Department Directive 2021-01. If the patio were to be a lattice cover, this would bring lot coverage to 29.9%, just meeting requirements. These alternatives confirm that the reasonable development of the site with a single family residence, the primary purpose of the R118 RUPD zoning district, is possible without need for variance. The residence alone, as planned, would meet all the applicable regulations established by the RUPD, including lot coverage. Only when all three development options are included does coverage exceed the maximum required. Even if only one of these options were to be removed or the patio converted to a lattice cover, then the lot coverage requirement would be met. Furthermore, there is no apparent peculiar condition facing the property, nor has any unnecessary hardship been created by such condition. Although located in the foothills of Daisy Mountain, the site is mostly flat. There is a drainage tract along the west lot line, but this has no impact on the property itself. The lot is rectangular in shape and is overall typical of a residential property in Maricopa County. For this reason, a variance would fail to preserve the general intent and purpose of the MCZO. However, if the board finds the applicant has satisfied the statutory test and has stated its findings on the record, the grant of this variance will memorialize the following. Item A, variance approval establishes a maximum of 32% lot coverage for APN 202-23-634. This time I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nick. Great overview. Are there any questions of Nick or other staff at this time by any of the board members? I do have one. So if they used a lattice cover, because it surprised me last month when I found out that lot coverage goes to the edge of the eaves and not the building footprint. But the lattice isn't considered enough of a structure that kicks in anyway, because a lattice has an overhang.
We would count the entire area of the lattice unless it's if it's detached, it can be an accessory structure. We do not count the 1% eve overhang, 1 foot eve overhang, right? And the primary structure, a 2 foot eve overhang. Yeah, we actually subtract out a 2 foot eve overhang for primary buildings and 1 foot eve overhang for detached accessory buildings.
Okay.
But we also, for lattice and similar structures that are not solid, we count that lot coverage at 50%.
Okay, and that makes sense. With a lattice cover, is there a permit requirement if they put something over the lattice to make it impermeable? I mean, there's a structural component to it, but if you put plywood and tile.
Yes, that would change the calculation.
But not change the calculation, but I mean, would that require, what's to stop somebody that builds something with a lattice today from just converting that to a normal cover tomorrow? Would that then, other than a lot coverage, would it be a violation of, they needed to get a permit for that?
Yes, they would have to get a permit because that would change the load on the roof. But of course, that enforcement is reactive to citizen complaint. We're not patrolling and looking for violations.
Okay, all right. No, thank you, Darren, and thank you, Nick. All right, go ahead and open the public hearing. The applicant, Andrew Goodwin with William Ryan Homes, if you'd please come forward and provide your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Andrew Goodwin, and I am with William Ryan Homes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. I believe I pressed this button. So we are proposing a variance to this lot coverage issue based on a number of conditions, being that there are already multiple lots in this unit that have exceeded the 30% lot coverage. So we do have 2 doors down at parcel 202-23637 that is at 31.8%, and that was the one of the first 2 homes. It is actually one of our model homes, and that was allowed and got through planning and development approval without any issue at all. And there was also the lot very nearby that is also at 31.2%. We do have various other ones that are over 30% as well within this entire unit. So the proposal is to just increase this to allow for that extended covered patio to be added. Adding a lattice covered patio as suggested of 250 square feet is not actually, would not be possible, as the current standard plans are approved to only have 160 square foot patio on the rear, and the optional extended cover patio is 360 square feet. So we would have to reduce the size of the patio back to 160 square feet, and that 340 square feet would actually be calculated at 50%, would still be over at 30.4% lot coverage. Calculating and thinking of all of the overhangs, we do have space to provide for those as well, but without those, we would fall well under the 30% based off of the number of structures that are based on here. I am hitting the wrong button. Oh, it's the one with the star on it. So you can see here is the proposed lot plan, and we do have some pictures of the site. So currently, right now, as it sits, the house just to the south of it also has the same casita option that has been chosen, as well as an RV garage, as well as the house to the north of it as well has the same casita, as you can see in the bottom left picture. There's also the same casita, and the houses surrounding it, almost all of the houses have the same RV garage and casita selection. But some of those other lots are quite bigger and did not fall in the confines of, or go without the confines of the 30% max coverage. And here is just some pictures looking out from the interior of the lot, where you can see the one on the right is showing the house that is currently under construction to the south that is within the max lot coverage, and then also the one to the north as well, which is completed and does have the casita as well. So as far as a visual standpoint, which I believe is what the RU118 RUPD district was proposed, or was established for, was for a visual effect to create not ruining the view of the mountains that are to the east and to the north, and adding this casita and the existing, or the proposed RV garage structure would also not impede on that view upon anybody that would be looking upon there from the I-17 corridor. I believe that is all I have.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions by any of the board members of the applicant? Vice Chair Person.
Thank you for your presentation. So I'm still a little confused about your comment on the lattice. So why would adding a lattice require you to convert to a different size patio? Why couldn't you just take the existing, the proposed size of the patio and have the entire thing covered with the lattice material?
So yes, so the approved standard plans that have already been approved with the county a few years ago allow for a 160 square foot patio, and then the extension would be 340 square feet. And in doing so, converting that to a lattice would still be over, because we take off the 50% of that, being at only what, 100 and, I'm just doing quick math in my head, but 170 square feet. That would still push us over to 30.4%, which would still be over the max lot coverage. And the buyer of the property is concerned with water penetration based off of the multi-slides that would be in place on like the bedroom and the great room, where that extended cover patio does cover up to give some protection from water penetration.
Okay, and then I have one other question, really not part of this case, but assuming you still have other lots in the development, can you go through and not offer all of these options on the lots that would push you into needing a variance?
Yes, the remaining lots are not large enough to even accommodate any larger amounts of structures. So they can have either, like one of them, multiple of them are already sold with just the extended garage option, and the other lots have number of grading issues, so they do not allow for a mass, like the same number of structures to be built with the same options selected.
Thank you. Any other board members have any questions of the applicant? I do have one, but I think it was confirmed with your comment and from one of the photos. This is actually somebody's under contract for it. This is not a spec home.
Correct.
All right, thank you. That does it for questions, but again, we may have something else. As I mentioned, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak? And do we have anyone on? Oh, Darren, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there was reference made to standard plans, and just for the board's benefit, those are plans that get approved by the department for building safety clearance, and they can be applied to various lots. The standard plans are specific to an applicant, and they can apply them to various lots. And then the zoning clearance and drainage clearance are done for the individual lot permitting. But the standard plan building safety is not lot specific, and therefore the standard plans may not fit on every lot.
Oh, thank you, Darren. Nadia, do we have anyone online, or David? David, is there an indication the person online wishes to speak?
She never indicated. I can give her she's
She
available
does?
to speak if she'd like. Christine, go
Yeah.
ahead.
If you could
Hi,
provide
good
your
morning.
name, please.
Christine Hopper.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to, I would be the end home buyer of this unit. So thank you for taking a minute for the consideration of this. Just a little bit of a history that hopefully will also help with this. We signed our paperwork in October after taking maybe 2 to 3 weeks to go through all the options. And it was even said at that time that this would be over the 30% and that it would not be an issue, that they had done it previously and precedence was already there. And that it had started at 35% in the neighborhood, but turned to 30 during that process. You know, from then until now, there's been a few things, and you know, unfortunately, it's taken a little bit of time. But hopefully, with the explanation you got there as far as what's needed for the home, that does explain it. And that extended patio too, we can't even have the sliding doors if that's not there. So it changes the whole footprint of the inside and functionability of the inside outside of the home as well. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, and thank you again for hanging on to the bitter end for this project. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. This is in District 3. Are there any questions or comments from board members and or a motion? By the way.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm gonna have a hard time approving if another one comes in with this now that it's been made clear that there's this requirement. But that being said, I will make a motion that we approve case BA 25-0004, subject to the language outlined in the staff report.
We have a motion for approval by Vice Chair Person. Is there a second? We have a second from Member Cardin. Rosalie?
Member Cardin,
Yes.
Member Clapp,
Yes.
Member Ward,
Yes.
Vice Chair Person,
Yes.
Chairman Loper.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion for an approval by a vote of 5-0.
Congratulations. And just following up on Vice Chair Person's comments, William Ryan Homes had a project on Olive, and the name escapes me. I think you're built out at this point, but similar circumstances with lot coverage and setbacks. That one had a lot of drainage issues. I think ultimately they modified their RUPD, and that may be if you wind up in a situation where if not enough different plan sets fit on the remaining lots, you may want to explore that. All right. Otherwise, we are adjourned. Thank you to Protective Services, Maricopa County Sheriff's Department. Thank you both for being here and standing the entire time. Apologize for that part of it, but I understand you're told you have to. So, but if you fell asleep, we'd never tell anybody. Everyone else, have a good day and a great Valentine's Day. We'll see you in March.
Thank you.